Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The 10, your favorite Big Ten betting show here on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. College hoop season is well ago right now. We've got plenty of Big Ten action to discuss with you. I've got my Cornhuskers gear to rep today following our last episode last week. We'll talk through if these Huskers are for real. But first, I want to tell you about a new college basketball weekly profit boost promotion that we've got for you. Bet Rivers is giving out college basketball profit boosts from 20% to 50% throughout the week for live wagers on Tuesday, same game parlays on Wednesday, and regular parlays on Thursday. You can see the Bet Rivers app for more details. As you can see, we are turning our attention from college football toward college basketball as there's so many games to bet. We'll continue to bring you all of the best scouts and game prep that we can throughout college basketball season. But first, let's look back at college football just a little more because bowl season is here. Doug Kezirian's with me. Doug, so much of bowl betting comes down to jumping on the right line at the right moment. And these can change as we start to get information on who's in and out of lineups and coaching situations. There's plenty of non-game related things to scout here. But now that we have lines for all of these Big Ten postseason games, does anything jump out at you as a good time to strike early?
Yeah, bull betting has always been a certain exercise and animal in and of itself, but really the last handful of years, it's become different with opt-outs and things along those lines. And with the situation in Ann Arbor, Michigan's bowl game, I think, is really intriguing. And we've seen one-way sort of traffic on this bowl line move, and I don't see how it doesn't go even higher. So we've gone through the key number of 7. We're up to 7.5. So it's about 5.5 to 7.5 in the wake of the news surrounding Sharon Moore. But if I was just digging and reading quotes and a lot of this bowl betting it's a race for information, kind of like NFL preseason. And the comments were like, we told the guys they don't have to play. Some of them didn't want to. My only instruction, I'm quoting their interim coach, my only instruction was that we give them love and tell, it's like, not that they're not going to be intense and play football. It's just the mindset and the preparation. You play amateur psychologist a little bit. I just don't know how Texas isn't going to be the right side in this game. Arch is coming back now. A lot of times now, if somebody's transferring, that's one thing, but a lot of times we'll get like 7 opt-outs or 5 opt-outs the day of the game because a school wants the opponent to be prepping as if those key players will be suiting up. So obviously this can drastically change in either direction come game day, or if certain information leaks out between now and then. But just handicapping the effort and stuff like that. Now, it's a New Year's Day bowl. It's a big bowl, Citrus Bowl. So I think they'll be ready to play. This isn't one of these random ones. But I just don't know how much is going to be on the Wolverines, just ready to attack sort of element here. And I also think Texas is a better squad, and Michigan's had sort of a flat season. So I think this line's going to keep going. If you like the Longhorns, I would get it now. I certainly do.
Yeah, I think you've nailed the spot here for Texas, especially with the news Arch Manning plans to return. Not that anybody doubted that overly much, but you just have a team in Texas whose leaders are kind of owning the fact, okay, we didn't make the playoff this year, but I'm still going to be playing college football next year. We're going to be back. There's more to hunt. This journey's not over yet from a pretty good football team, right? This is one of those teams that was just outside of the playoff picture. There's a caliber difference even with Michigan at full strength between these two teams to me. Michigan so in flux right now. I think you've nailed this. There's no surprise to me that the line is moving in that direction early, but I don't know about you. Like, where would you cap this at as an interesting play to you? I don't mind this getting up to 10, I don't think.
I agree with you on that front. The question is, if it were just these variables, I would definitely be laying a lot more than 7.5. But the problem is it could backfire by the Longhorns sitting out come game day. We've seen massive swings, like 13-point swings throughout the course of bowl season. So I think in general, in the non-playoff games, I tread lightly to begin with. I used to be in 3-4 pools over the years, but now I'm in 1, maybe 2, but I got to be able to change my pick the day of the game or up until the day of the game just because so much information. So you never look, the betting is always a little risky, but this is everything. All the risk is compounded and accentuated because, frankly, there could be 15 guys at Texas that be opt out. I mean, I don't expect it, but you can't go too heavy on any of these games just because of the uncertainty that can strike at any moment.
Yeah, it really is like I don't know, like almost buying a lottery ticket. You have no idea what you're betting with these right now, and that's not to discourage betting because bowl betting is very fun. Bet responsibly, folks. We say it every single week, but I don't know how you navigate this landscape where these games get more and more meaningless as the playoff gets bigger and bigger. I think you really do have to isolate spots. That's why right now, looking at other early lines in this league, outside of the Michigan fade play, I don't think there's anything I'm rushing to line up and bet. Do you have any other games to catch your attention, Doug? Or if not, that's fine.
Yeah, again, everything's a little diminished in terms of my confidence, my unit sizes, all that stuff. I don't get too aggressive. That's the one. I mean, look, obviously Washington was a beatdown against Boise State, and all the tea leaves and the line move looked like Washington was the right side. In terms of some of these other games, like I don't expect like Minnesota, New Mexico to be that drastic with opt-outs, but you just got to be careful. And always, we always stress getting the best number, things like that. I'd rather be late to the party than early, really, because if line point spreads rarely come into play. I'd rather just know the details and the line move. And like, for example, come game day, I'd rather lay 9.5 with Texas, just because I'll feel more certain that more curveballs aren't coming.
Yeah, that's a great outlook and also a good plug to continue watching this show because we'll have a
Right.
second episode later this week. We will be back during the holiday weeks with one episode of the 10 on the Bet River Sports Network. So stay tuned. And once we get more clarity, we'll give you some more thoughts on the bowl schedule. For now, let's pivot back to hoops. We got 3 games that we can give you a scout for. But first, I got to talk about the Cornhuskers. We were on here late last week, and I gave out Nebraska money line at Illinois as my play of the week. That line got all the way up to Illinois minus 10.5. Some weird late line movement in that game, but it really did play out exactly as I hoped it would. They did a great job baiting 3-point shots to the guys that Nebraska wanted taking those shots from Illinois. I certainly did not expect Price Sanford to turn into Rip Hamilton from the mid-range in the first 20 minutes of that game. But despite me dating myself, I love this Nebraska team. I think they are very for real. They look like a top 12 to 15 team in the country to me right now. Doug, is it time to officially announce that Nebraska has arrived as a contender in this conference?
Yeah, I don't want to pull a muscle patting myself on the back, but I was all talk early in the week, just thinking it'd be a great spot to fade them. But oh no, I after watching them earlier take care of business, I said, no, this team's for real. I think they are a contender to a certain extent. Our championship contender, probably not, but we see teams like this make a run where it all just fits. I mean, we overlook sometimes just what's so awesome about sports. It's chemistry. It's all this stuff. Heck, we just saw Indiana make an incredible run the last 2 years with the right coach and the right quarterback, and then the right pieces around him. There's no reason this team can't, bring the noise and make some serious noise in this competitive conference. So I don't know if I'd be willing to pull the trigger right now on their futures market. I think we're a little late, but there's also ebbs and flows to a season. I'm probably going to strike when they lose a couple in a row, and everyone thinks it's just going to be permanent coming back to earth. And I really like what I see right now with the Huskers.
Yeah, they're just a fun team to watch, regardless of how much you want to invest or buy into their ability to win this conference. I got to be honest, it's a little bit of a non-starter for me in terms of betting them from a futures market right now, solely because I don't think over a 20-game sample size, as good as I think they are, they're not Michigan good. And there's another team in Purdue that's looming that's great. I gave Michigan State as a potential long shot play. I think Nebraska can be amazing this season, go 14-6 in the Big Ten, finish third or fourth in this conference, and then be a very problematic team to match up with in the NCAA tournament. I mean, short prep, this is such an interesting defensive scheme to have to figure out for teams. If you caught this team in the round of 32, I would love Nebraska's chances against pretty much anybody in the country. What I would say is this, as someone who has been, I like to think, on the forefront of the bandwagon for the Huskers, The biggest point of skepticism for this team in terms of contending is that they are still matchup dependent. And it was a perfect matchup against Illinois, given that Illinois puts a lot of iffy shooters on the court at once. I'm going to love Nebraska when they host Michigan State in 2 weeks. I've already circled that spot on the calendar. But when this team plays Purdue and when this team plays Michigan, not saying they're not talented enough to hang in those games, those teams are shooting the lights out. And those teams employ 4 to 5 shooters on the court at once. And both those teams are great rebounding teams. That's the 2 ways you beat Nebraska. You make your shots from outside, and when you miss them, you beat them up on the boards. Illinois did it to an extent when they made runs in this game. They were successful in the rebounding battle. They didn't do it enough. I have a feeling Purdue and Michigan will probably be the nightmare matchup for Nebraska, similarly to the way Nebraska was a nightmare matchup for Illinois. But for me, it's March futures. That's what has my attention for Nebraska. Can you bet this team to win a couple games in the NCAA tournament? That's where I'd be looking at later in the season. We do have 3 games on the card on Wednesday here that we want to discuss, beginning with UTSA at USC. Some problematic news for the Trojans in recent weeks. Rodney Rice, his status very up in question. There are rumors he will miss the remainder of the season. Those rumors have not been confirmed. I never know what to do when you have the rumor mill. I know this. I don't like this USC team nearly as much without him. Chad Baker-Mazara has been spectacular, but they're just one superstar short for my liking if Rodney Rice is unavailable. At 23.5 here, Doug, is there anything for you tonight?
I lean to the dog, but this is a team that's not very good at all. Under 500, can get blown out. That's the other thing. They've shown they can get blown out. The USC sort of plays to their competition at times, although they've been pretty impressive with some of the big conference games so far. I think, it's when teams have sustained success and win, and it's people sort of dismiss it too often. You're getting everyone's best shot. For example, there was a random game last night. It was Cal Baptist was playing Southern, and Southern's down their leading score, and they didn't go away, and they end up being an 8-point game or something like that. But it's not that easy just to put away teams and take care of business night in, night out. Your key players can get in foul trouble. Shots can just not drop. You're on the road. So a big number like this, I'm going to lean to the dog. The problem is they're just not very good, and they can get rolled. And even some of the backups can sort of be that much better than some of the guys on the Roadrunners. So that's my apprehension here. So it's a mere lean, but obviously Ken Pom makes it right on the number too.
Yeah, this might be a consistent theme for me as we sort through these 3 Wednesday night games on a quieter slate in the Big Ten tonight. It's a stay away. I want no part of this one. My general outlook with the Trojans, with the Rodney Rice issue hanging over this team, is this is going to be a really good team to fade as the schedule heats up. I think this is a group that has not played a top 40 opponent yet this season, has flirted with disaster numerous times. Disaster only bit them when they blew the huge lead to lose that game against Washington. But, man, you almost lost at Oregon. Oregon looks horrible right now. I don't think the Boise State and Seton Hall 2 wins by 5 combined points in Maui are going to hold up overly well as the season goes on. This team is 10-1 in record. I think that can only last so long. Unfortunately, UTSA has nothing that I want to buy into. I mean, this is a team that against any quality opponent has gotten blown out. They just lost by 24 at Colorado over the weekend. Alabama handled them by over 40 points. So, Baker-Mazara has been incredible. That's the nicest thing I can say about USC. But just from a general standpoint, I'm waiting until they get some middle-of-the-pack Big Ten opponents. Probably going to be looking to fade the Trojans. Nothing for me tonight. Let's welcome Troy Machir into the show for the first time. Troy, can you add anything for us here on UTSA and USC?
Yeah, this is a tough one with that number of 23.5. Right now, 84% of the money and 88% of the tickets are actually on UTSA. I agree with your notion that this is a stay away game. Here is some trends. UCLA has failed to cover its spread in each of its last 3 games as a double-digit favorite. And those were 2 of those were their last 2 games, San Diego and Washington State. They beat San Diego by 13, and I believe they were 19.5-point favorites, and they were 16 or 13.5 against Washington State, and they won by 5. To your point, UTSA is dreadful on offense. They rank in the high 300s, and there's only 380 teams in the country in terms of efficient offense. However, they're not horrible at defense. They rank in the top 100 in effective defense and in defensive efficiency. So I'm not going anywhere near the spread, but I do think that the total at 156.5 is lightly interesting, due in large part because of the rumored news about Rodney Rice. He's your leading scorer. He's your best playmaker. And if he's unable to go, that will change up kind of the mojo of the team. USC is 7-4 to the over. UTSA is 2-6 to the over. Right now, 89% of the money and 80% of the tickets are on the over. But each of UTSA's last 5 games have gone under the total points line. And I just think one thing we have to remember about this specific week is this is a midterm week, exam week across colleges. So, I get that maybe college basketball and college football players aren't, grinding it out at the library, but it's a different it's a different feel to the campus. There's no students there. Your class schedule is wildly different. And usually this is the lull part in the season where you get the cupcakes back on your schedule after, the last 3 weeks of neutral site games, MLEs, and, a high level non-conference games. So if there's any play to be had, I would think the under here, just because it could be a sleepy game against a team that is far better at defense than they are on offense. And even if they're not scoring, that it's just going to be a slower game, especially without a guy like Rice to really cook.
Yep. It's great added notes. Thank you very much, Troy. Okay, moving to the second game of the slate tonight. We're staying out west. All 3 games tonight are out west. We've got Portland taking on the Oregon Ducks. Oregon by 20.5 is where this line sits. Total is at 155.5. Doug, any thoughts?
Look, there's another game. You said it, Greg. Like you're on the fence. You're going to be have the similar response for all these games. With these types of games, and to piggyback what Troy was saying, is that it's just a disrupted schedule. And with school, this more is in like college football, that guys like Portland, they know these guys at Oregon because they grew up, facing them in high school and stuff. That's not the case. You get players from all over. But there is a little bit of a little brother punching up to the big brother aspect in some of these games. And Oregon's been just a train wreck, as you mentioned a moment ago. So I can't bet on Oregon. I just can't. They've been so bad against the spread. We see it on the graphic at 1-9. I believe in Dana Altman, but ultimately, it's dog or pass. But I'm not running to bet this Portland team. Like, there are aspects that I like. Some of these, these teams that casual fans would not know over the years is people you want to bet on, but they did lose by 20 to Stanford, and some of these other they're capable of getting rolled. So I don't want to get involved. And also there's a regression component to this. Like, am I late to the party with Oregon here? Is the market adjusted just too much? Is at some point are they going to go start ripping off some covers in a row?
Yeah, I feel like Oregon is yet another team here, consistent with my thoughts on USC, that I really want no part of right now. In fact, this is probably my only play on the card this evening that I feel strong enough to really jump ahead and play. I'm going to take the underdog plus 20.5 here. Spot-wise, Oregon just had their first performance of the year that was good, and that's not an exaggeration. I mean, this team started 4-0. But did not play a team inside the Ken Palm Top 100 and did not win by more than 14 points. They finally got a blowout victory after losing 5 straight and falling to 4-5 overall. They beat UC Davis by 42 and just had a feel-good night where shots went in. They hang 104 points. It's worth noting Nate Biddle, their superstar center, only played 7 minutes in that game. He's got an injury hanging over his head, and nobody will really comment on what his availability status is, but it's pretty clear this is a lingering issue. I'll take the other side, really, regardless of who the opponent is. Now, I think there are a couple things Portland can do in this game that will help them get there, but truly, I would take probably any team in the country plus 20.5 in a letdown exam week spot off Oregon shooting the lights out without Nate Biddle. Portland, to me, if you look at their profile, they're 7-4 on the season. None of their wins are particularly impressive, but the one thing this team does well is score inside. They really are low volume from three. They don't even want to make threes. They are all about finding ways to score in the paint. They're 30th nationally in 2-point percentage. That's what their offense relies on. If Biddle is at all hobbled in this game, like he has been for the better part of 3 weeks, I think this is a pretty good opportunity for Portland to exploit what they do best against an Oregon front court that lacks their key rim protector. So, like I said, it would be plus 20.5 for me from any opponent. Given the fact that Portland's strength maps with maybe a weakness for Oregon right now, it's my favorite play of the night. Let's get Troy back in here. Troy, any other trends or data we should note here?
Yeah, so I do wonder about the last game against UC Davis. They won by 42. That was off the heels of 5 straight losses, all in non-conference play and in tournaments, and 3 of those were neutral court. 1 was road, and then 1 loss to USC at home. All against teams in and around the top 20 to top 50 of KenPom. And their next game after tonight is against Gonzaga. It's the biggest game of the year. Certainly, yeah, Michigan State, all the conference games, but like Gonzaga versus Oregon is a big game on the West Coast. Gonzaga is very, very good this year. So they need to gear up for that. And right now they have their only good, I wouldn't even say data point, but like mentally strong performance that they've had. So they need to continue that. I think when we were saying stay away from Oregon at minus 20 and a half, it's not necessarily that they're going to lose or win by 6. I see this game being a 15 to 17 point win. The problem is they're allowing their opponents to shoot a really good percentage from the foul line. Oregon's a great offensive rebounding team. They rank in the top 30, but to your point, if they don't have Biddle in the middle there, that's going to be a real struggle on the offensive glass. They do have Kwame Evans, who's decent, but Portland does have a 7-footer as well that is attributed to some of their interior play. The trends, I think, in this game are not important. The most important thing you need to know is Oregon is not good. Like, this is not an Oregon team we're familiar with. And one thing that I've wondered in the last year is when Oregon made the Final Four a few years back, and when Dana Altman really rose to prominence at Oregon, he was doing it through transfers when the rest of the country wasn't really doing it. And not just 1 or 2 transfers, but like overhauling his entire team with transfers. He was doing it well. Fred Hoiberg, who's now at Nebraska, when he was at Iowa State, he was doing it very well when Iowa State had ripped off 3 straight tournaments, entering at 2 or 3 seeds. Now that the rest of the country is just ditching high school recruits and going all for transfers, you see Oregon kind of taking a step back because they're not as competitive the transfer market is more competitive than it used to be. So that is an interesting thing as how you look at Oregon as the program going forward. This is a stay away on all counts. There's no real trends that suggest this is heavy to the under or the over. This might be a game that if you're itching to bet on, that I would say wait until this game is live, and potentially if they get down early, you take Oregon to cover, because we've seen this time and time again in these cupcake games where a team might get down early and the live line will get smaller, and then like last night, Lipscomb and Duke. Lipscomb was only down 7, I believe, at the break against Duke. You could have got Duke at minus 17.5 when the line was 28.5 to start the game. Duke ended up winning by 30 plus. So this is a live betting opportunity. I would not bet on this pregame.
Yeah. Okay. Good intel there as well. And reminder, if you are looking for live betting opportunities, you can do that at Bet Rivers. Best place to do it. All right. One more game, probably the marquee game of Wednesday evening. It's Arizona State at UCLA. The Sun Devils are a surprising 9-2 to start the season here. And they had a quality win over Texas, quality win over Oklahoma, just got bit against Gonzaga and USC. And I don't think anybody's blaming them for those 2 losses at this point. This could be a prove-it game if you are an Arizona State believer. However, UCLA in a bounce-back spot as well. Doug, you were going down your line of thinking for this one already. Let's go back to it. What do you think here?
Yeah, I lean dog here. Look, UCLA, I thought was impressive against Gonzaga, all things considered. But, Hurley's got some stuff working as well for the Sun Devils. It's a lot of points. Like, I would have made this line 6.5 or 6 or something like that. Just feels a little too rich. Like, I wouldn't be stunned if ASU won the game. So it's a lot of points. But Bruins have been polished for the most part. But there's no way I'm late 8.5 here. I just can't. So it's dog or pass and slight lean here to the ASU.
I think that's the right lean. For me, it's a stay away for one reason only. To me, Arizona State's best player, the guy that makes them go if they're going to pull off a win like this, is Mo Odom. Now, I got to meet Mo Odom at Big 12 Media Day, and I got to say, he was the star of that entire conference's show. He's an infectious personality. He's a kid with incredible self-belief, and he's a Bronx point guard to the purest form you can imagine a New York point guard being. The problem for him is I think it's a terrible matchup for him against Donovan Dent and a Mick Cronin defense, especially when you've got a pissed off Mick Cronin defense and a Donovan Dent who really needs a statement game, quite frankly. For me, I want to talk myself into Arizona State because I have questions with the Bruins, but because their best player is someone I think will be neutralized by Dent and the matchup itself, I've got to just pass on this game as a whole. Back to Troy one more time. Troy, anything to add for us here?
Yeah, Arizona has covered the spread in 5 of its last 6 games as an underdog, and they've been surprisingly an underdog in several games this year. Arizona, Cal, Washington, and Gonzaga. So I like the underdog here. It's funny, a pissed off Mick Cronin team is a tough customer, but that's every team he's ever coached every single game. His teams play like I remember the teams at Cincinnati. They were just scary teams that you did not want to get into a fist fight with. And he's brought in some of that in terms of tempo and how they play defense and a very slow pace of play, in the 300s in adjusted tempo. Arizona State is a little bit faster. I think this game could potentially go under. 61% of the money and 57% of the tickets are on over, and that's not strong at all. The public is on Arizona State to cover with 66% of the money and 54% of the tickets are on the Bruins. But that, again, when you see those numbers, that is the public leaning towards the underdog. I think this could be a dog win and potentially an under. It is 146.5, which is very low. But I just think if that matchup you spoke of, if that is dictated early in the game and UCLA playing at home, if Arizona State doesn't get off to a red hot start, this could be a game that Mick Cronin's team really grabs control of, at least in terms of how the game is played and at which pace. So, I'm kind of with the public here that it's a dog and potentially the under.
All right, there you have it. Thank you, Troy, as always. Let's close the show here with our best bets. Doug, anything that we discussed today, what are you going to go with?
I think Troy's got me thinking about the under here. I think that was a really good point with USC and all the question marks, and UTSA can't do a whole lot. Their defense, it's a big number. So I'll roll with the under with UTSA and USC.
All right, good shout. I'm going to take the dog in Portland, Oregon. Portland plus 20.5. Hoping, obviously hope for good health, but if Nate Biddle is not at full strength, I love plus 20.5. Even if he is, this is a good letdown sell spot for the Oregon Ducks. I thought you might go with the Texas line early, Doug. Staying away from that is the best bet.
Yeah, I wanted to keep it on the hardwood today, but yeah, that's my best bet for sure. That's my favorite bet right now in all of bowl season.
And there you have it. I knew there was some confidence to close the show with.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. All right. Thank you to our viewers. Thank you, Doug, Troy, and our whole team behind the scenes as well. 3 basketball games tonight that we covered for you. We will be back on Friday with an entire weekend slate preview and more thoughts on the Big Ten bowl season as well. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you again on Friday.